All right, ready for a deep dive into something pretty fascinating.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. What are we diving into today?
We're talking about metformin, but with a twist.
A twist. Okay, you've got my attention. Metformin, huh? Most people associate that with diabetes, right?
Right. You probably know it as a diabetes medication, but get this, it's making waves in dermatology.
Dermatology. That's interesting. What, like for skin conditions?
Exactly. And what's really cool is it's not some brand new discovery.
Oh, so it's not like some new fancy expensive treatment.
Nope. It
Oh.
actually comes from a natural source. Like, it was used in herbal medicine way before anyone even knew how it worked.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. So we're talking ancient wisdom meeting modern science. I'm intrigued.
It is pretty cool, right? And that's why researchers are really excited about metformin's potential for skin health.
Mm,
It's been around forever, basically, and it's really safe and effective.
Makes sense. So tell me more about this twist. What kind of skin conditions are we talking about?
Well, the source for our deep dive today is a YouTube video
Okay, cool. By who?
by Dr. Naglaa Elmongy. She's a dermatology professor. The video is called Metformin and the Skin, Exploring Its Potential in Dermatology. And it goes into all sorts of things like how metformin could be used to treat acne, rosacea, even wound healing.
Okay, I'm officially interested. Let's break this down. First things first. Can you remind me, how does metformin work for diabetes? Like, what does it actually do?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it helps regulate your blood sugar levels. It does this in a few different ways.
Okay.
Like it reduces how much glucose your liver makes, then it limits how much glucose your body absorbs from the food you eat, and then on top of that, it makes your body more sensitive to insulin.
Got it. So it's kind of like a multi-pronged attack on high blood sugar. Interesting. But how does any of that translate to benefits for the skin?
That's where things get really interesting. This video explains how those mechanisms we just talked about, those blood sugar regulating mechanisms, they actually have this like surprising impact on skin health.
Mm.
And it also has some other properties that help skin.
Okay, I'm ready to be surprised. Let's hear it. What are these mechanisms?
All right, so let's start with the anti-androgenic effects. I know hormones play a big role in skin health, but can you kind of break it down for us? Like what's going on there?
Sure. So androgens are hormones like testosterone,
Right.
and they're essential for lots of things in the body. But when you have too many of them, they can cause problems for your skin, like acne, even excessive hair growth, things like that.
So it's like a balancing act. You need some, but not too much.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Androgens and insulin resistance, they often go hand in hand, and they can both directly mess with your skin. It's like a double whammy.
Okay, so how does metformin help with that?
Well, because it reduces insulin levels, right? So that indirectly lowers those androgen levels too, and that can help get rid of some of those skin problems.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is probably especially important for conditions like PCOS, right? Where insulin resistance and high androgen levels, they're both often at play.
Exactly. Metformin can kind of tackle the issue from both sides, which is why it's so promising for PCOS. It's not just treating the symptom, it's getting at the root cause.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what about these anti-angiogenic effects that the video mentions? I don't know, I have a feeling most people listening probably don't know what that even means.
Yeah, probably not. Angiogenesis basically means forming new blood vessels.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a good thing, like if you're healing from an injury, your body needs to make new blood vessels. But if there's too much of it, well, that can cause problems for your skin.
Ah, so it's like too much of a good thing can be bad.
Right. And chronic inflammation, which we see in a lot of skin diseases, can actually trigger this excessive angiogenesis. It's like adding fuel to the fire.
Okay, and metformin comes in as the firefighter.
Exactly. It
Hmm.
can basically inhibit angiogenesis by, it regulates the growth factors and pathways involved in blood vessel formation. So it's like cutting off the supply lines that are feeding these skin problems.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Feels like metformin's a real multitasker when it comes to skin health.
Mhm.
Okay, what else is there?
Oh, there's more. We've only just begun to scratch the surface. There are even more mechanisms at play.
Oh, okay, I'm hooked now. What else can it do?
All right, let's talk about its anti-fibrotic effects.
Antifibrotic. Okay, what does that mean?
So fibrosis is this excessive buildup of connective tissue,
You okay?
and that can lead to scarring and thickening of the skin.
Oh, okay. Like think about hypertrophic scars or keloids. Those are the ones that are raised and sometimes painful. They can form after an injury.
Right, exactly.
And so metformin can help with that.
Yes, it can actually interfere with the signaling pathways that are causing this fibrosis, so it can potentially reduce scar formation and even improve wound healing. It's like it's helping your skin heal in a smarter way, not just faster.
Hmm, that's pretty cool. You know, this raises a really interesting question. Could metformin actually change how we approach scar treatment in the future?
That is a great question. And, it really speaks to metformin's broader potential. Like, it could change how we think about skin health altogether. It's not just about managing conditions we already have. It might actually prevent future problems and, help people's skin function better in general.
Okay, I am definitely seeing metformin in a whole new light now. This is fascinating. But wait, there's more, right? Did you say something about antioxidant effects earlier?
Right, we
The-
can't forget about those. And this is a big one. So think of oxidative stress like a constant barrage, like your skin cells are always under attack from things like UV radiation, pollution, even your diet and lifestyle, they can all contribute.
So it's like this never-ending battle that our skin is fighting.
Yeah, exactly. And when that balance gets messed up, it can actually damage your skin cells, which leads to aging and can contribute to all sorts of skin conditions.
Oh, wow. Okay, so metformin, what is it, like a shield? Does it protect our skin?
You got it. Metformin can act as an antioxidant, so it can help neutralize those harmful free radicals and protect your skin cells. Basically, it gives your skin's own natural defenses a boost.
Okay, so it's not just treating specific conditions, it's also helping to protect our skin from that everyday damage.
Exactly. And that's really important, especially for people who are worried about premature aging or, they just want to maintain that healthy, youthful complexion. Metformin's antioxidant properties can really help with that.
This is all incredibly fascinating. But before we go too far, let's talk about the research behind all of this. Did Dr. Elmongy mention any specific studies in the video?
She did, yeah. She mentioned one that was published in December 2023 in Acta Dermatovenerologica.
Okay.
And it focuses specifically on metformin's potential for acne, hidradenitis suppurativa, and rosacea. Really goes into the details.
So this isn't just theoretical, there's actual science to back this up.
Exactly. And although the research is still ongoing, the initial findings are really promising.
This is definitely a field to watch then. I have a feeling metformin's role in dermatology is going to keep growing.
I think you're right. It really shows, the power of research
Yeah.
and how exploring old medications for new uses can lead to these incredible breakthroughs. It's really exciting.
Absolutely. Speaking of exciting, let's dig a bit deeper into one of metformin's key mechanisms that we mentioned before, its impact on the mTOR pathway. I know this pathway is super important for how our cells function, but can you remind me, what is it exactly?
Yeah, so the mTOR pathway, it's involved in cell growth, metabolism, survival, all sorts of things. But when it's not working properly, it can cause a whole bunch of problems, like inflammation, uncontrolled cell growth, things like that.
Okay, so metformin basically steps in and fixes things.
You got it. And the video actually goes into detail about how this all plays out in different skin conditions, like atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, hidradenitis suppurativa, even acne. In all of these conditions, the mTOR pathway is often overactive, and that contributes to the inflammation and the buildup of skin cells that you see with these conditions.
Okay, so metformin is essentially calming things down and getting those cells to behave themselves.
Exactly. And this has big implications for lots of different dermatological problems, even rosacea. The video talks about this peptide, LL37, that's involved in how rosacea develops. And guess what? It activates the mTOR pathway. So it creates this whole vicious cycle of inflammation and abnormal blood vessel formation.
Oh, so metformin could break that cycle by inhibiting mTOR. That could be huge. It's like hitting the reset button on all that inflammation.
Yep, that's right. It's definitely a big area of research, and the initial findings are really encouraging. But metformin doesn't stop there. It's not just about mTOR. Remember those MMPs we were talking about earlier, those matrix metalloproteinases?
Yeah, the ones involved in angiogenesis.
Those are the ones. Well, metformin can actually directly bind to MMP9, which leads to its degradation. And they've even done studies in mice with rosacea where metformin actually reduced MMP9 levels, suggesting that it could be a real therapeutic benefit for rosacea.
So once again, we see metformin kind of working on multiple fronts to deal with these skin issues. It's pretty impressive.
And that's not all. It also seems to affect the NLRP3 inflammasome, a key player in inflammation.
Okay, I'm going to need you to explain that one. What is the NLRP3 inflammasome?
Think of it as a fire alarm in your cells, but it's like super sensitive.
Okay.
Sometimes it goes off when it doesn't need to, causing all this unnecessary inflammation. And you can imagine that's not good for conditions like rosacea, hidradenitis suppurativa, or acne.
So it's like another piece of the inflammatory puzzle.
Yeah.
And metformin can calm it down.
Exactly. By inhibiting that NLRP3 inflammasome, metformin can help dampen the whole inflammatory response and hopefully improve these conditions.
Wow, this is all so fascinating. I'm sure our listeners are probably thinking, okay, this is great, but what does it all mean for me? So what are some key takeaways that people should keep in mind if they're thinking about using metformin for their skin?
First and foremost, talk to your doctor.
Yeah, always good advice.
They can look at your individual situation, your medical history, what medications you're already taking, and the specific skin conditions you have, and then they can advise you on whether metformin is right for you.
Makes sense. Don't self-prescribe, folks.
Exactly. And the second thing is manage your expectations. The research on metformin for skin is super promising, but it's still early. We need more studies to fully understand how well it works, the best dosages, and what the long-term effects might be.
So cautious optimism is the way to go. But it's pretty cool to think that a medication originally meant for diabetes could end up being a big deal for dermatology.
I agree. It really speaks to the power of research, and how exploring new uses for existing medications can lead to some pretty amazing discoveries.
Absolutely. And speaking of discoveries, let's dive a bit deeper into some of the other cool things that metformin can do for our skin. Ready to keep exploring?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go. One thing that stands out about metformin is how it affects this thing called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1.
IGF-1, huh? Okay, I've heard
Yeah.
of that, but how does that relate to skin? Remind me.
So IGF-1 is a hormone that's involved in cell growth and development, and it's pretty closely linked to insulin signaling.
Okay, so I'm guessing that means because metformin can change insulin sensitivity, it can also impact IGF-1 levels, like one thing leads to another.
Exactly. It's a domino effect. And in conditions like PCOS, where you often see insulin resistance and those high androgen levels we were talking about, metformin can help regulate both insulin and IGF-1.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just treating individual symptoms, it's more about like addressing these underlying hormonal and metabolic imbalances, right?
Yeah, you got it. And that's one of the things that makes metformin so intriguing. It takes a more holistic approach. Okay, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about autophagy.
Autophagy, what's that?
Think of it as your body's built-in recycling system. It's how your cells break down and recycle their own components. They get rid of damaged or unnecessary parts.
Oh, interesting. So like a cellular cleanse, getting rid of the junk.
Yeah, exactly. It's super important for keeping cells healthy and preventing all this buildup of harmful stuff that can lead to different diseases, including skin conditions.
Okay, that makes sense. So where does metformin come in?
Well, research is showing that metformin can actually enhance autophagy. So it's like it gives your body's cleanup crew a boost, helps them work more efficiently. And that could be one reason why metformin seems to have so many benefits, not just for skin, but for all sorts of health stuff.
So metformin isn't just treating symptoms, it's actually optimizing how our cells function at like a really basic level.
Exactly. It's not about masking the problem, it's about addressing the root causes.
I like that. Getting to the root of the problem. The video also talked about this complex relationship between androgens and insulin resistance, especially how they both can make skin problems worse. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. Remember how we talked about androgens like testosterone and how they can increase sebum production?
Yeah, sebum, the oily stuff that can clog pores and cause acne.
Right. Well, it turns out that insulin resistance can actually make that whole process worse.
Oh, really? So it's like a vicious cycle then. Insulin resistance leads to more androgens, which leads to more sebum, which leads to more acne.
Exactly. And this connection between insulin resistance and androgens, it's not just about acne. It can also contribute to other things like hirsutism, which is that excessive hair growth that some women experience.
Okay, so metformin could help break that cycle by dealing with the insulin resistance.
That's right. And that's another thing that's so cool about metformin. It takes a multi-pronged approach. It improves insulin sensitivity, but it can also directly affect androgen levels. So it's like it's hitting the problem from both sides.
That's awesome. It's like a 1-2 punch.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about oxidative stress earlier that can be really damaging to skin, but can we go back to that for a second?
Sure. So basically, oxidative stress is like your skin cells are constantly being bombarded by these things called free radicals.
Right, like little attackers.
Yeah. And those free radicals, they can cause all sorts of damage, from wrinkles and age spots to more serious skin conditions.
And it's a big part of why we age, right?
Right. And that damage can contribute to all sorts of skin problems like acne, rosacea, psoriasis, even skin cancer. It's pretty serious stuff.
Okay, so we've got to protect our skin from those free radicals if we want to keep it healthy and looking young. So where does metformin fit in?
Remember those antioxidant effects we were talking about? Well, that's where metformin really shines. It acts like a shield, helping to neutralize those harmful free radicals. So it basically gives your skin a boost to its natural defenses.
Like that, metformin,
Hmm.
the skin superhero. So not only can it help treat specific conditions, but it can also protect our skin from all that everyday damage.
Exactly. It's about protecting your skin from the inside out.
I love that. Speaking of protection, the video mentions that metformin might actually have potential in preventing skin cancer. This is a big deal for a lot of people. What have researchers found so far?
Well, it's important to say that the research on this is still pretty new, but there's growing evidence that metformin might be able to fight cancer.
Oh, really? In what way?
There have been some studies that show it can actually stop the growth of certain skin cancer cells, both in the lab and in animal models.
So maybe it's not just about treating skin conditions, but maybe it could actually help prevent skin cancer from developing in the first place.
That's the hope. And some studies even suggest that metformin might make traditional cancer treatments like chemo and radiation work even better.
Wow, that would be incredible. But it sounds like we need to wait for more research before we get too excited.
Definitely. But it just goes to show how much potential metformin has, not just for dermatology, but for lots of different areas of medicine. It's exciting stuff.
I agree. The video also mentioned something about metformin's potential to help wounds heal. Can you tell me more about that? I'm curious how a diabetes drug can make our skin heal faster.
Right. It really shows how connected everything in the body is. So wound healing is a complicated process. It has all these different stages like inflammation, blood clotting, tissue regeneration, and then eventually scar formation. And metformin seems to be able to influence different parts of that process. So yeah, it could potentially make wounds heal faster and more efficiently.
Interesting. So it's not just about preventing or treating skin conditions, but it might also help our skin bounce back better after an injury.
Exactly. Some studies have shown that metformin can actually make wounds close up faster and reduce inflammation and even improve the quality of the scar tissue that forms.
This has got to be especially important for people with things like diabetic ulcers, right? I know those can be so difficult to heal.
You're right. Because metformin can help control blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and help tissues regenerate, it's looking like it could be a good option for treating those really tough wounds. It's just another example of how metformin can be helpful in ways that go way beyond just managing diabetes.
It's like metformin is a healing multi-tool.
Okay, so bringing it back to the bigger picture here, it sounds like metformin's effects on the skin are often linked to its effects on other things going on in the body, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about treating the skin in isolation. We have to think about how everything is connected.
Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Sure, let's go back to PCOS. We already had talked about how metformin can help regulate those insulin and androgen levels in women with PCOS and how that can help with things like acne and excessive hair growth. But it doesn't stop there.
Right. There's more.
Way more.
Yeah.
Metformin can also improve how the body uses insulin, which can help with things like weight gain and the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which are big concerns for women with PCOS.
Okay, so it's not just about treating the skin. It's really about addressing the underlying problems that are causing lots of different health issues, including the skin problems. It's a way more holistic way to look at things. You got it. And that's something that's becoming really important in medicine these days, this idea that everything is connected. It can help us come up with better ways to treat people and keep them healthy.
Okay, I like that. So the video also focused on a few specific conditions:
Hmm.
acne, rosacea, and hidradenitis suppurativa. Can we go through each one and you can tell me a little about them and how metformin might help?
Sure. So let's start with acne. It's super common, affects people of all ages, and it happens when pores get clogged, you get inflammation, and then you get those pimples, blackheads, whiteheads. It can be really hard for people's self-esteem, especially teenagers.
Yeah, I think most of us have some not so great memories of dealing with acne. So how does metformin help with that?
So remember how we said metformin can reduce androgen levels?
Yeah.
Well, androgens are known to increase sebum production, and sebum is one of the main things that causes acne. Metformin can also reduce inflammation and improve how the body uses insulin, which can also be helpful for acne. It's like it's attacking acne from all sides.
That's pretty impressive.
Hmm.
Okay, what about rosacea?
So rosacea is a chronic skin condition, mostly affects the face. It causes redness, flushing, you can see blood vessels, sometimes bumps and pimples. It can be really uncomfortable and embarrassing for people who have it.
Yeah, it can really affect people's confidence.
Yeah.
So how does metformin help with rosacea?
So we don't know exactly what causes rosacea yet, but we think inflammation and abnormal blood vessel growth are big parts of it.
Oh, okay, so that's where metformin's anti-inflammatory and anti-angiogenic properties come in.
Exactly. So metformin might be a good option for treating rosacea because it can reduce inflammation and stop those blood vessels from growing too much, especially for people who haven't had success with other treatments.
That's great. Okay, last one, hidradenitis suppurativa, or HS. What is that?
HS is another chronic inflammatory skin condition.
Mm.
It affects areas where skin rubs together, like the armpits, groin, under the breasts. It causes really painful bumps, abscesses, and sometimes even these tunnels under the skin. It can be super painful and really hard to deal with.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
So can metformin help with that too?
So with HS, we think it's caused by a few things. Hair follicles that don't develop right, inflammation, and sometimes bacterial infections. So metformin's anti-inflammatory effects could potentially help calm down those HS flares. And it might also help regulate the immune system, which seems to be out of whack in people with HS.
So it's targeting the underlying inflammation that's causing the problem.
Exactly. It's about treating the root cause, not just the symptoms.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about all these benefits, but I'm sure people are wondering, how does it actually work? Like at the cellular level, the video mentions a bunch of different things. Can you explain some of those?
Sure. So we already talked about the mTOR pathway. It's involved in cell growth and metabolism. And metformin can actually block this pathway, which can help reduce inflammation and stop cells from growing too quickly in different skin conditions.
Right, the mTOR pathway is like the conductor of the cell orchestra.
That's a good way to put it. But there's also AMPK. Metformin can activate this enzyme. It's like the cell's energy manager. It senses when cells are running low on energy and kicks in to conserve and create more energy.
Okay, so it's all about keeping those cells energized and working properly.
Yeah. And activating AMPK has all these beneficial effects like improving insulin sensitivity, reducing inflammation, even increasing autophagy, that cellular cleaning process we talked about earlier.
It's pretty amazing how metformin can affect so many different things in the cell, all working together to keep things healthy.
It really is. It's this really fascinating and complex interplay. And that's one of the things that makes metformin so interesting as a potential treatment. The video also talks about this thing called TGF-beta, transforming growth factor beta.
TGF-beta. And it plays a role in skin fibrosis. Remember fibrosis?
Yes, that excessive buildup of connective tissue,
Hmm.
which can lead to scarring, like those hypertrophic scars we talked about.
Right. And TGF-beta is really important in that process. It's a signal that tells the body to make more collagen, which is one of the main components of connective tissue. Okay, so too much TGF-beta can lead to too much collagen, and that's what causes the fibrosis.
Exactly. And that's where metformin comes in. Studies show that metformin can actually block TGF-beta signals, which means it could potentially reduce fibrosis and help with scar formation. It's like hitting the brakes on that collagen production.
So once again, we see metformin working on multiple levels to help with skin problems. It's amazing how it can target so many different parts of these really complicated processes.
And that brings us to another really interesting aspect of metformin, its potential effect on the gut microbiome.
Wait, the gut microbiome, that's our gut bacteria, right? What does that have to do with skin? I thought that was more about digestion and immunity.
You're right, the gut microbiome is usually associated with those things, but there's a growing body of research that shows it can actually have a big impact on skin health too.
Really? So what we eat and how our gut is functioning can actually affect our skin. That's fascinating.
Exactly. And metformin, because it can change the gut microbiome, might actually indirectly help with skin health. For example, some studies show that metformin can actually help good bacteria grow in the gut, and that could have a positive effect on skin inflammation. It's like a chain reaction. Good changes in the gut lead to improvements in the skin.
Wow, I love this idea that everything is connected like that. It's pretty mind-blowing. It makes you realize how important it is to take care of your whole body, not just focus on one thing.
I agree. Our bodies are these amazing complex systems, and understanding how everything works together is so important for being truly healthy.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. This has been a really awesome deep dive. But I'm sure our listeners are wondering about some of the practical stuff. Like, are there any side effects people should know about if they're thinking about using metformin for their skin?
That's a great point. Like any medication, metformin can have side effects, but most people don't have too many problems with it. The most common ones are gastrointestinal, like diarrhea, nausea, upset stomach.
Okay, those don't sound fun. But are they usually really bad?
Not usually. They tend to be mild and they often get better over time. One thing that can help is to start with a low dose and then slowly increase it. That can help minimize those side effects.
So start slow and give your body time to adjust. Good advice. Are there any more serious side effects people should be aware of?
There is one that's rare but serious, and it's called lactic acidosis. It's a buildup of lactic acid in the blood, and it's more likely to happen in people who have kidney or liver problems. So it's really important to talk to your doctor and have them check your kidney and liver function before you start taking metformin.
So bottom line, have a good conversation with your doctor about your health history before starting any new medications. Always good advice.
Absolutely. And it's always important to follow your doctor's instructions and let them know if you have any unusual symptoms.
Okay, so the video mentions that metformin is often used together with other treatments for skin conditions. Can you give some examples?
Sure. So for acne, they might combine metformin with topical retinoids, antibiotics, or hormone therapies. And for rosacea, they might use it alongside topical creams, laser therapy, or oral antibiotics. It really just depends on the person and their specific condition.
So it's not necessarily a replacement for other treatments, but it's like an extra tool that they can use together.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's about finding the right combination for each person.
Okay, so what about dosage? Is there a standard dose of metformin for skin conditions?
Not really. It can vary depending on what they're treating, how the person responds, and other factors. It's really important to work with your doctor to figure out the right dose.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Like, it's
Okay.
about finding what works best for each person.
Right. And it's also important to remember that metformin can take a while to work, so be patient and keep taking it as directed.
Okay, so patience is key. This has been such a fascinating deep dive. It's really amazing to think that a medication that we typically think of for diabetes could have such a big impact on our skin.
I agree. It really shows the power of science and how what we think of as a simple drug can actually have all these incredible effects.
Speaking of exciting new possibilities, what do you think the future holds for metformin in dermatology?
I think it's really bright. As we learn more about how metformin works and all its potential benefits, I think we're going to see it being used for more and more skin conditions. It's a really exciting time for this area of research.
It sounds like metformin is here to stay. And because it's already been around for a while and it's generally safe and affordable, it has the potential to become a really important part of how we treat skin conditions.
Absolutely. And that's really good news, especially for people who are looking for safe, effective, and affordable ways to take care of their skin.
Okay, so the video ended by talking about the importance of a holistic approach to health and wellness. What does that mean for skin health?
So, a holistic approach to skin health means recognizing that our skin isn't just this separate thing, it's a reflection of our overall health. Things like our diet, how much sleep we get, our stress levels, even our gut microbiome, like we talked about, all of that can affect our skin.
So it's not just about what we put on our skin, it's about taking care of our whole selves.
Exactly. And metformin, because it has all these effects on different parts of the body, it fits really well with this whole holistic approach. By improving insulin sensitivity, reducing inflammation, and making our cells function better, it can contribute to our overall health. And when we're healthier overall, our skin is healthier too. It's like this ripple effect.
It really is all connected, isn't it?
Yeah.
True health and beauty come from the inside out.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Okay, before we wrap things up, are there any other important takeaways from the video that you want to emphasize?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, it's important to remember that while metformin seems really promising, it's not a miracle cure. It's a tool, but it's not a replacement for things like a healthy diet, regular exercise, and managing stress.
Right, it's about doing all those good things and using metformin as an extra help.
Exactly. And second, it's important to be realistic. Metformin doesn't work overnight, and it might not work for everyone. Just be patient, stick with it, and see how it goes.
And of course, like you said earlier, talk to your doctor first. They can help you figure out if metformin's right for you.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into metformin and its effects on the skin. I've learned so much. It's really amazing to think that a drug that's usually used for diabetes could have all these incredible benefits for our skin.
It really is. It makes you appreciate how incredible the human body is and how much we still have to learn.
It really makes you wonder, what other amazing discoveries are out there just waiting to be found? Maybe there are other common medications with these hidden talents, just like metformin.
I think you're right. There's so much we don't know yet, and that's what makes science so exciting, always learning new things.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into metformin and all its surprising skin benefits, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Hmm. I think the biggest takeaway is that metformin's story really shows us how science is always evolving. What we think we know today might be just the beginning. And that's pretty awesome, right?
It is. It reminds us to be curious, keep asking questions, and never stop learning.
Exactly. We need to embrace the unknown and remember that the human body is amazing and full of surprises. There's so much we still don't know.
And as we keep exploring, who knows what other amazing things we'll find? Maybe we'll discover that other everyday medications have these hidden superpowers too.
I think that's a great possibility. And this whole discussion really highlights how important research is. And it shows how thinking about health in a holistic way, looking at the whole picture, can lead to some really cool discoveries.
I totally agree. This deep dive has definitely changed how I think about metformin. It's amazing to think that something that helps manage blood sugar could also do so much for our skin.
It really is remarkable. It's like a reminder that the world of medicine is always changing. What we think of as a simple drug today could be a game changer for all sorts of conditions in the future.
It's a message of hope, isn't it? It encourages us to keep searching and to never give up on finding new ways to help people live healthier lives.
I think so too. And on that note, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of metformin and its surprising skin benefits.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something new and exciting about metformin and how it could potentially revolutionize the way we think about skin health.
We hope you'll keep exploring and learning with us.
And remember, stay curious. The world is full of incredible things just waiting to be discovered.